So I finally finished reading the Dawn of Yangchen. It did take me a bit longer than I would have hoped, but I think there are a couple reasons for that, and I will explain that later. So first of all, this book did a huge amount of world building within like the 300 pages that it was, and I think that this is most likely because of how politically driven the plot of this book is. So it really does feel like a story that's more about world affairs rather than a personal experience of Yangchen. Like, we get perspectives on her character and stuff, but it also kind of goes back and forth with her and Kavik. So there's a lot of like, I think, disconnect from her character when I was reading the book, at least. More than half of the time, my brain was like, placing pins on maps and like connecting the dots on like what's happening in the world rather than like focusing on her character and what she's feeling. And I think FCE did a great job like delving her character out in general, as far as like how her mannerisms are and how she talks and how like she kind of takes on problems. I think he did a really good job taking on her character, given like the minuscule amount of screen time that she's had within the comics and then also the show. But the story in general just doesn't feel like I was living vicariously through her. And I think part of that is because it was going between her and another character, and then also how the plot was more of a politically driven type of thing instead of like this character is developing through a problem. So Yangchen's avatarhood is very interesting in the fact that like Homegirl really didn't have like friends. Like, it's really sad to say, but she really didn't have friends. And the only friend that we really knew that was like super loyal to her, that she considered her sister, like she was lost in the spirit world. And that sucks, honestly. I do wish that scene or that part of the book could have been more intense. Like, for me personally, the part where her so-called sister like literally gets lost into a void forever, like it didn't feel like, it makes me mad that I didn't feel more, if that makes sense. Like, you're just kind of left like, what the, like, just kind of empty. Which, I mean, now looking back at it, I think FCE did a really good job, because that's probably how Yangchen would have felt in that moment, because it's like man, But yeah, getting back on track, she really didn't have friends, and so like you kind of see how she has to deal with spies and all this. So in like the traditional world, before like things were like thrown extremely out of balance in Aang's time, like the traditional world of the avatars like being trained and having all these people around them, you can really tell that there's actually a lot of politics that play into being the avatar in a more, I would say, balanced world. And a lot of the politics are because like there are so many other people fighting for power at once, whereas in Aang's time, like it was just the Fire Lord versus everybody else. So obviously everybody's gonna want to depend on Aang. And I think that idea also comes up with Korra, and the fact that like, she felt helpless, like she felt like the world didn't need her as the avatar because there's, all these other people doing so many other things. But yeah, the idea of spies and like this whole like political, like there's like so many plays happening at once. Every single time somebody else like had a card to pull out of their booty hole. I thought it was really funny because it reminded me of the scenes from Naruto where like they're having a battle, and it's just like, oh, well, you didn't know that was my shadow clone. And then it's just like they're like narrating the fight scene, and then it's just like they're going back and forth and seeing who's gonna outwit who. That's kind of what like the politics felt like in this book, because it was like with Kavik and his brother, and Henshi was just like, oh, well, you don't know my card. And he pulled out Kavik's brother, and I was like, you know what? I wasn't predicting that, actually. But it just reminded me of those like very cheesy type of scenes. And I honestly kind of enjoyed it, because I was like, okay, you got stuff up your sleeve, I see you. But I do think that part of the book was kind of interesting. It was really fun. And then I kind of wanted to talk about more of the bending, because I made a video on this a while ago, and I was talking about kind of like the human trafficking, or like the just taking advantage of people's abilities in some type of way. And so I literally talked about the human trafficking possibility in the Avatar universe, and I talked about combustion benders. And I talked about how rare their ability was, and how, like, I'm not going to make any assumptions, but Some of them were probably like war prisoners, things like that. Like, these people are being controlled for their ability to do like immense feats, and that was literally in this book. And like, I don't know what I was expecting. Unanimity. Is that the word? I'll put in the word on the screen. I don't really know what I was expecting it to be, but I don't think I was expecting combustion benders. The second that I was reading the book and he was like, the shipment were the people, as soon as I made the connection and I was like, they're Fire Nation, and as soon as that like vision, and they were bulky, as soon as that description was in my brain and he was like, oh my god, it's the people, I was like, you know, if FCE's watching one of those, has seen one of those videos, I hope he knows that our brains were somewhere in the same place, okay? I thought that was really crazy. But the ending scene of this book was my favorite thing. It wasn't like a full out like war scene like I would have imagined for like Avengers Endgame or anything, but it was like secret spy, like Yangchen is, okay, I'm gonna get to the part of where she's like literally suffocating these people to death, but like she's literally like making them pass out, and they're like taking their bodies and like they're sneaking around, and then there's that one scene where she's like out in the open and she's like, I dare you, try and take my life. And I was like, that's pretty bold for like the Avatar, considering every single Avatar we've seen so far, everybody has been trying to kill. Like, she really was like, you try, do it, I dare you. You know, that was just kind of insane, because you can really see how like the times change, I guess. But yeah, no, the whole ending scene was probably one of my favorite scenes, I would have to say. But yeah, and then I just kind of want to talk about the morality of it all. I've talked about this before in my rant about the Kyoshi novels, but like morality across all the mediums are just like, there's no one answer. Like, there's nuances in every single one of these things. In this book, we see Yangchen like literally defying everything of what we have expected an air nomad to be because of Aang. Like, she's like, I could eat meat if need be. I could lie because there are bigger things. Like, these sayings that she's saying like go against everything that Avatar The Last Airbender was based on, because, you know, Aang kept his morality. And so like the morality of the Avatar universe is just kind of very interesting in the fact that it's very nuanced and it's very everywhere. Because honestly, like, morality is a very subjective thing that can be argued in different ways all the time. And I really like that the books, you know, take on different stances every single time. Yeah, Yangchen is definitely not Aang's friend in the fact that their moralities are very different. And so like seeing her character throughout this novel, like I said, FCE does a great job because it brings all this character into that one scene where Aang asks her for help on the lion turtle, and she's like, I would have done anything to, you know, like save her people. Because that's literally what she would do. Like, she's out here like lying, deceiving, all this stuff. And it's like for the greater good. It leads me to kind of think about how like the world dynamic is when it is seemingly quote unquote balanced. Because like in this world that Yangchen is dealing with, there's no one extreme power overpowering the whole world, like the Fire Lord was in Aang's time, and there's not like one huge like bad person. Like every single season of Korra had like one antagonist. This novel really was dealing with politics, and so like there's a whole bunch, it's like having a whole bunch of strings like tied to you, and you have to like have enough tension in every single one. And like I think for Yangchen to really achieve that, she has to be breaking like part of her morals, like lying and deceiving, because it's not like good versus bad. It's like, how do I do this within the terms that are technically like legal? That's even harder. So she's just gonna lie, you know? And I don't know if that changes people's perspective on her character as far as like she's a bad character because she's lying so much. Like, she's a bad avatar for not being as moral as Aang. And I think that's a very interesting topic to kind of talk about, because it's like, how do you like verse avatars and versus these two very different times, very different worlds, where Aang is like, there's a bad guy. It's very obvious good versus evil. Whereas Yangchen is like, who is really the bad guy? It's kind of like everybody's just trying to kind of fight for power, but level stand, like keeping everything good for the people in a world where people are kind of power hungry and not going for like a huge grasp of power, but trying to get as much as they can. I think that's a very complicated time to kind of need to get a hold of. Like, there's so many things that you'd have to have control over or like know how to navigate in order to keep things balanced. Whereas Aang was just like, defeat the Fire Lord, you know, like it's an easy answer there. But I think that's why that the world building in this book is really good. Like, it makes you kind of think about those things. The only thing I could have asked more for would have probably been being able to see more into Yangchen's mind. I think that's just how I am as a reader, though. Like, I love having a main protagonist or like a protagonist like that I get to like live through them. Like Percy Jackson, you know, all the Heroes of Olympus books, like even though each chapter was a different character, like I got to be in their kind of lives. Whereas this didn't feel like it. It was more of like storytelling through the third, like above eagle view, you know. I do just really wish I had more like connection to her character in that way. But with that being said, this was a very enjoyable book. I do think I still prefer the Kyoshi novels over this one, but again, this book brings so much cool stuff into the Avatar universe, so I would 100% suggest that you read if you have not. And if you've watched this video before you read the book, I'm judging you, unless you plan on not reading it. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.